It's 1 o'clock. It's time. I am not in my normal car, so I don't have my glasses. So if I don't see well or I miss something, please forgive me. So as always, we'll start call to order and pledge of allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have anyone participating? Committee members? I don't think so. I don't think we have any committee members on the Zoom, right?
Don't have any committee members remote.
So I can just do a roll call?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start with Steve McKesson,
I'm here.
Bob Marnett,
Present.
Mig Gaska,
Present.
Flint Nelson. I'm here. So we have a full house. Alternate. We don't have an alternate. Hello. We don't have an alternate at this point. And typically that is the CFO, but we'll probably hear more about that in a bit, but we don't need to seat an alternate because we have a full house. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda? We'll go to the staff first.
We have none.
Any committee members have any additions, deletions, or adjustments? Okay, so looking for a motion to approve the agenda. I move we approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Mig seconds. Can we do you have to
A
do it?
verbal vote. You can do a verbal.
I can do it, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No, okay, we have, it's unanimous. Public comment, do we have any members of the public online here?
We have no members of the public online.
Okay, and we have received any written requests? None?
Not-
All right, we'll move to item number 8. When we did the roll call, before we do that, Patty,
Yes,
are you visiting our committee today?
yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. So would you please note that Director Townsend Smith is visiting the committee today?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. We are just a powerhouse of activity here. Okay, item number 8, approval of minutes. All of you have had a chance to look at the minutes that Therese and her staff have prepared. Are there any proposed changes or corrections to the minutes? And if there are none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
All motion.
All right,
I'll second that.
all right. Bob moved and Steve seconded a motion to approve the minutes as written. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Unanimous. Okay. Item 9. Comments and requests. So I think we start with you, Jake.
Yeah, a few things of note. We are having a pretty significant wind event. Looks like it just started a few hours ago. I'll let Harris handle that under his comments, though, kind of the actions that the district's taking, but we are expecting some power outage. As far as some district items, we actually received the funding for the exit fee financing today. So we'll be putting the 3.15 million back into the reserves. That was the initial exit repayment, and the 12.6 million we're planning on wiring over to the County Water Authority at the end of the month. It's due by 1/30. That's the 90-day after detachment occurred. So that's all in order.
We're gonna pick up a little juice on that between now and then.
Pick up a little bit of juice on that between now and then.
A little vague. We're gonna get a little vague on the money.
We call it just a temporary period before our payments due. Yes.
Well,
But yes,
I'm saying we're gonna make a little interest. Is that why we're waiting?
we're going to stick it all in the camp account and Well, yeah, we're gonna hold it until it's due.
That's what I'm,
Absolutely.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Got a little vig on the money. Okay, go ahead.
But the IRS calls that the temporary period where we've got the money and yeah. You got it. We did receive our first bill from EMWD. That was in mid-December for deliveries in November. We had about 1,000 acre feet of deliveries, 974 actually to be exact. December has been very dry. We're expecting, which is kind of average. November, that's kind of an average November. If you remember the months ahead of that, our sales were actually up quite a bit. 20%, about 20% from the year prior. And but November, that's kind of a more of an average month. And December's been very dry. So we're expecting probably similar numbers to November, although we've had even in December, we had a couple of these really dry. I think we had one PSPS event, and I know we do typically get some pretty good demand on the system. I think Ag responds, and they do some pretty heavy watering in December. The power shutoffs.
Okay.
The power shutoffs. Yeah, dry wind event, and I know we had one in December. So, but anyways, we expect expectation is similar numbers in December. So that's good. I mean, I guess us getting that bill, that just everybody's kind of in line, right? Our numbers are going to Met's transferring, and then there was no errors or anything like that. We are tracking all the flows now on the 4 connections, and we have control of control and communications with those connections too. So Med and his team they spent a lot of time and effort getting that done. Really happened in December. It was actually the County Water Authority that wanted to. They had a shutdown on pipelines 1 and 2, and so we waited till that shutdown was over, and then kind of did all the SCADA upgrades and that for us to take control. But that's all done. On the kind of big water news, and I shared this with the board about a week ago. But it has been very dry start to the year down here. I mean, we've had really no measurable rain in Southern California. And so I figured, people start to get worried, are we headed back to drought? And fact is they're that's already being talked about, that Southern California is entering drought. I'd say the good news is in the north, not so much. At least the start to the water year. November and December were actually pretty good months. A lot of it in much further Northern California, in the Oroville area and Shasta and up in that area. But really they're above average on their snowpack to start the year. So again, that's about 30% of the supply that comes here. And about the same on the Colorado side. I think they were a little below average for this time of year, but they've received some decent snowfall too. So as far as the imported supply goes, hasn't been a bad start. It's just been really abnormally dry here. So our sales are up, and imported supply looks okay. At least for the time being. They are entering kind of a dry stretch now, so we'll kind of see what the rest of the year holds. I had mentioned this to I think to the board last month, but big decision coming out of Metropolitan Water District related to the imported supply, related to in Northern California supplies. They did approve funding for the Delta Conveyance Project. It was a little bit in question, I think, over the last few months, whether they were actually going to pony up. It was about 140 million, and that's just to finish a lot of planning activities, which the planning activities do include a lot of physical investigation, geotechnical, explorations and things like that. So there is a lot of physical work going on. But there is a lot of controversy around that project. The governor and the state is really pushing to move it forward and get all the entitlements done by the end of 2026. And so they made a huge push, even at the Metropolitan Board level. I heard there was direct calls from the governor to individual board members on Metropolitan, kind of petitioning for this thing to have an overwhelming yes vote, and it did. They had 1 no vote on that entire board, so 98% approval. So they are going to fund that.
Let me just be sure I understood you correctly, Jake, excuse
Yeah.
me. They're planning on spending $140 million on planning and
Yes.
conceptual engineering.
Well, it's planning and entitlements. So it's
Yeah,
permitting and I know it seemed like a lot.
there's no real work going on.
Well, there is. That's a lot of the geotechnical exploration and things like that. So there is some physical work going on, but it's all in support of actual construction. Yeah.
That's an arm and a leg.
So, but then a lot of work on the entitlements to the permits to get it done. And that's supposed to take them to the end of that. You know, the target is end of 2026, fully entitled and kind of ready to go.
So
to
then they're ready to
construction.
start phase two, which would be detailed design.
Yeah.
Really?
You know, and
Really?
that's, I'm not sure what the delivery method is on, or what they're planning the delivery method on that. If it's going to be a traditional design bid build, or if they're going to
Do
do
like a
some,
design build or
yeah,
something?
something like that. You know, I would guess they might, do something like that. But I heard it's a 10-year process for construction post, post those. But again, big project, bring additional water. It actually preserve our water supply coming from the north, and really it bypasses all the, some of the difficulties they have now with the fish and pumping and things like that. So, anyways, but that was a big one up at Met. The only other thing I was going to mention, I mentioned this to the customer service communications committee. A lot of talk, but I just, so everybody's kind of in the loop on this one. A lot of talk on fluoridation of the water supply. There was a recent ruling that came down that basically instructed the EPA to relook at what has been deemed kind of the optimal level of fluoride addition into the water supply. Current, it's 0.7. And so there is a mandate for them to go back and relook at this thing. But there's a lot of kind of politics around it and things like that I think are going to put it in the headlines, and it gets people stirred up. We've got a few questions. I've had a couple of just direct calls from customers asking about fluoridation in the supply. Rainbow does not add fluoride to our water supply. Metropolitan and the County Water Authority both do. It was actually a mandate back in, I think it started in the late 90s, but then by the early 2000s, where if you had the funding, and basically they gave grant funding to do this stuff, then you were really mandated to do it. So Met and County Water
Is
Authority.
that state or federal mandate?
It was a state.
State?
Yeah, that was the state of California. And basically Met supplies have a naturally occurring concentration of somewhere between 0.1 parts per million and 0.4. And they just add whatever's necessary to get to that 0.7. And that's what's going to be, I guess that's what's going to be looked at as part of this EPA study. But there is a lot of focus on that. And so we'll see where it goes. But if you do get questions and you want more information, there's actually Metropolitan put together a really nice like information sheet. It's front and back that really kind of explains how it came into being, what are the benefits, what are the concerns, some FAQ, things like that.
Is this conversation the result of some kind of a study or something that has raised questions, or is this coming from and I'm just using this as an example, political comments from people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. who think that fluoride is bad for the human condition, or
A little both.
okay?
A little both. I think that the publicity is coming a lot from that side. But there was a group that they consolidated a bunch of information and came back with the conclusion that, over time, especially in children, there's a reduction in IQ scores based on fluoridation so that's what they're going back and looking at. I can't comment on the validity of the study, but that's
Really?
kind of what the case was about, and the court ruled.
So that's why I'm as stupid as I am. Is that right? Got it. Thank you very much.
But I thought it came through as a paper document with, I don't think it was FDA, but it was some like medical
Yes,
society or, association.
right, and
something
I'm
like that.
yeah, and I'm not sure exactly who was behind it, but anyways, the EPA has been instructed to take a look at that recommended residual, and so I think that's what'll come next. Those things usually take a while, but it is kind of in the news, and so you make it, if you're affiliated with the water district, you may get questions about. And Rainbow, yeah, we never have and don't add any fluoride to the water. So, but Metropolitan does, and we import our water from Metropolitan. So
Now, okay, so there's a 0.1 to 0.4 naturally occurring.
correct,
So if nothing was done, people are still gonna get fluoride.
correct.
So that would be a point that you'd want to alert people to. It's not going to go to 0. And then if it gets raised to 0.7, what's the degradation of, because like any type of
Yeah, it
gas
gets
or whatever you want
potentially
to
eaten
describe
up.
it as,
Yeah,
it starts degrading, and so when it gets to people, what's really the level,
yeah. And I'm not sure if we tested. We probably have some data somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So might be something we want to look at as it kind of heats up, that,
Yeah.
this is what you can expect. But we do, again, we import water from Met, and
Yeah.
they've got it in there. So anyways, I think that's we are working, we're closing out the mid-year budget. So we'll be seeing all that in February. I don't think really any huge surprises this year. Again, it's a little different than in the last couple of years where sales are actually up. I think that was our big trouble the last couple of years, was, a decline in sales that started to put pressure on that annual budget. So I think with that, and then obviously we detached a little earlier than we had budgeted for. And so I think with those two events, and then everything else, I know through October, that's the last I saw the firm. We're gonna take a look at November here in the next day or so, and Budget and Finance will see that next week. Yeah, nothing really out of whack on our side either. Our crews have done a great job. One of our concerns was the chemical use, the chloramination at Morrow, which is critical now that we are moving all the water from north and then through the pump station. So maintaining a residual down in the south. And these guys have done a fantastic job at improving the mixing within Morrow Reservoir and cutting the chemical consumption, I know, by more than half than when we started. And so that's really kind of lowered. That was one of the things when we started the year. That was one of the budget items we were concerned with, and we'll see where we end up. But that concern has dramatically decreased, and that's the work of Robert and Steve Coffey and his crew. Always looking for ways to do it a little bit better. So that's all I got.
Any comments or questions for Jake? All right, we'll go next to Chad, Engineering CIP.
Perfect. Okay. So we talked at the last E&O about the Morrow tank, and we'd been waiting for the report from Atlas Geotech. Report was 2 bullet points in an email. So we have a meeting set up with them for early next week to go over that. The good news is, in the almost 12 months or a little bit more that we were monitoring the tank, Atlas reported back it has moved less than 1/4 of an inch in total. So we'll follow up with them. Robert, Jake will be on the call with them.
There was a couple fancy graphs.
There was
a
a
fancy graphs in there.
I just couldn't believe how long we waited for an email. It's okay. But we'll work on that. And then after the internal staff meeting, determination with operations, with the general manager, go for next steps, and then report back to the committee and ultimately the board once we have a little bit more data from the geotech. That's on the Morrow tank.
Has there been any investigation, Chad, as to why the tank is subsiding? Do we think that it's just ground settlement? Is it ground squirrels making 1 million tunnels underneath it? Do we have any sense of what the cause is?
We think it's on the side of the tank that was filled, was just not properly compacted.
So it's just subsided.
Yeah, you've got, I think it's, you got a cut and a fill
Yes.
situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's. Yeah, tough.
Thanks.
So more to come on that one. It's looking good. On the 3 pump stations, all 3 are online. They're running, as Jake mentioned. We are officially detached, taking water solely from Metropolitan, working with the general contractor to finalize some of the punch list items. And then there was an item on the Rancho Amigo site where the one that has the emergency generator there, that generator needs what's called a load bank, so that it's constantly has some load on it. And that was not a part of the original design, that we didn't know that was needed from Kohler until after it was installed. So we're working with them on some housekeeping items and a change order for that. And then we'll close that out. So we're hoping for the February board meeting, and we're still on track for that, for a notice of completion, but it's pending. But all in all, unless Robert tells me otherwise, the sites are all working great. Okay, good. District-wide weed abatement. This is something the district started in 2019. It was not district-wide. It did not include many sites, driveways, access roads, buildings, structures, stuff like that. So for the last several years, staff has been working on a truly comprehensive district-wide weed abatement program. We received some grant money from Cal OES, and we budgeted for it in this fiscal budget. And so if you went onto Planet Bids, you would see that this is currently out for bid. It's actually coming in as, I think we did it as an RFP. We met with legal on this one. We're gonna base it not on the cost, but on actual qualifications. So that's out there right now. We received a lot of questions. We did 2 days, full days of taking prospective bidders around to the different sites that they couldn't access on their own. We had 3 companies show up. I think there's 6 or 9 bidders following the project. We've issued 2 addendums, and we extended the bid opening to January 16th. And so if we open on the 16th, I don't think we'll make the January board meeting. I think that's cutting it too close. So we'll probably go to.
How much dough are we looking to spend on this?
That's a great question. I don't have the CIP up. I think the grant was for around 160,000 and change, and then we budgeted an additional 200K, I believe, for a total of around 350, 360. And say what we're doing is a 3-year agreement with 2 1-year optional extensions. So if we get a good contractor, they're doing good service, they like working with us, we can extend this up to 5 years.
Are there any financial boundaries on the size of the extensions?
There were built-in annual adders that could go in. I think it was based on CPI.
So that pencils out like 120 a year then of the 3-year.
About. Okay. All right. No, I think I misspoke. No, I believe we have 360 in this fiscal budget with the grant. And so it would be, it's not divided. It's not
360 over 3. Okay.
correct. Per.
Did the grant have some kind of a matching fund requirement on it? No, or it was just?
Don't, yeah, I don't believe it did. We have gotten 1 reimbursement so far from the state, and it took the district, I believe, 5 resubmissions to get that reimbursement. We actually met them in Julian, and they helped us walk through exactly what they want. Pre-photos, we were doing everything for their requirements, but they kept kicking back, change this, tweak this, adjust that. That column's wrong. That row should be before this. Okay, well, we got our money, so it's working.
Sweet.
So it's going good. Okay.
So now I am confused, Chad.
Okay.
Based on the exchange between you and Steve. We're going for a 3-year agreement with approximately $360,000 in spending authority. And that 360,000 is only for the first year, or is it for all 3? In which case, what he said is it would average 120. I'm confused.
Yeah, so I don't have this
I'm in
front of me.
support, by the way. I'm in support. I'm just
So I don't want to misspeak because I know that this is going to be in the minutes, and then I'm going to tell Therese that's changed that was incorrect. So let me go back and look at it. But my understanding is We have spent over the last 5 years averaging 200,000 per year. Sometimes it comes in a little under. This year, we got the additional grant of 160. We worked with the finance department, said, no, we want it all. We have neglected so many of these sites for the last couple of years. We're going to spend all of that money.
Okay.
So I believe this fiscal year, and I'm going to come back to this committee via email and confirm that this year we intend to spend, let's call it $360,000. And then when we go into FY 25-26, we would allocate an additional 200,000, unless there was rollover or whatever is needed. I don't believe it's divided over 3 years, though. It's definitely not divided over 5.
So we're going to do a catch-up campaign.
We
That's
need
basically
and when we met with these contractors, they all said, I mean, they're like, so where's the access road? It is so overgrown. It's not even shrubs anymore. They've turned into trees in some areas. So
okay,
Yeah.
good.
we need a catch-up campaign.
Got
That's a
it
great way to
now.
put it.
Thank you.
And
I
the county
understand.
doesn't take care of any of this.
No, these are district easements. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna make a note to myself to follow up with you before those minutes come out. And then the last one is the manual transfer switches. This is a project near and dear to Ahmed's heart, which makes it near and dear to my heart. As the committee will recall, this has been deferred for more than 5 years. We were able to get 2 of our 5 sites completed. One was done when the emergency generator was set at the McGee Pump Station through the Thoroughbred Lift Station project and another Cal OES grant. And the second was done via an informal yet public bidding. We thought that project would be under the public bidding threshold of $35,000. We invited about 5 contractors. I think 2 actually provided bids, and it was under $35,000. We were able to get that other one done. So both projects came in under the 35K. I pulled some old emails because this was Amanda Parra's. She was the PM for this project back in the day. And this goes all the way back to 2020, 2021. So we took that 35,000 per site and we came up with the estimated budget, which we currently have in this fiscal year's budget of with soft costs and staff time, we have about $200,000, and it's already designed. It's been designed for, I think, more than 2 years now. It's just been sitting on it. So we've had some internal meetings with staff. We're updating those drawings before we put this out to bid. And then we need to go back to the engineer of record, have them update the drawings and update their engineer's estimate. So there is a chance that they might come back and say, no, the 200,000 is no longer adequate. That number is 3 years old. We need to up it then, at which time we'll address it mid-year, or they could come back and say, no, we think for these 3 sites, you guys are going to be okay with what you have. So we'll know more on that once we provide our update.
This is an all or nothing proposition.
For
If in fact the costs have increased,
a
you,
great question.
could you
Do
with-
2 of the 3
do
sites?
2 of the 3? I mean, I don't like the idea of postponing safety, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious if you could do that.
We could.
You could
modify-
rescope the project.
Yeah, we've
right?
already created the bid schedule, but yeah, you could absolutely do that. That would be less than ideal, but we could. I mean, I don't want
I hear you.
all of our projects have been deferred for so long. I don't want to defer any other one. I definitely would not like to split this one if we don't have to.
Right.
So more to come on that one, but it's when we found Amanda Parr's old emails of how we came up to this number and drive front, I'm feeling better that we're sitting okay, but costs have gone up since 2021. So we shall see. And then that will be on Planet Bids also.
Do you guys know what Planet Bids is? Okay.
What?
We implemented that, a year ago, I think.
That was one of my most entertaining conversations with Jake, because he's like, why don't you guys use Planet Bids? I'm like, we've been begging to use Planet Bids, but
Yeah.
we never could.
Anyways, it's just a great site for, you get so much action from contractors. You put one project out to bid and it pays for itself 10 times over.
Well,
It's- yeah.
and on our projects that we're putting out, we can actually go in and we just type in a keyword, manual transfer switch, electrical panels. It'll show you everything in the state of California that has been bid or is currently bidding.
Yeah.
And so you can compare your documents to other HCD
Sample
documents.
specs galore
Yeah.
and costs. And I mean, it's a
It's been phenomenal.
pretty slick. Yeah.
It's been
Cool.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
That is my updates.
Any questions for Chad? All right, if not, we'll move on to Robert, operations.
How much time do I have today?
Till 6 p.m.
Dinner's at 5.
Never enough, but frequently too much, Robert.
Wow. Listening to Chad talk about grants and whatnot, it brought something to mind, and Ahmed did some work on a cybersecurity grant that we were recently awarded, and I don't know, what was the dollar amount on that?
That one was 179,000 and some change.
Nice.
So just
Very
before Christmas, we got the notice, and that was, Ahmed put the thing together 100%. No outside support. He put together the entire grant, scoped it, him and his team, and we got the full request. It was maxed out at what 300 was the max award, but there was a limit across the state of what they were going to award, and so we went in that. Let's ask for about half, maybe maybe a little bit more. And there's a lot in there. There's a lot of really, really good initiatives in there. But thinking that they might come back and say, well, we're not going to give you 179, but we'll give you 50, and we'll give you these. So we were pretty pleased that it was everything that we asked for. Yeah.
Very
A
good.
good strategy and a really good grant proposal.
So on to, I don't know. I don't know what to call this week already. I just came back from Arizona on Friday. I went to see my parents out there at Sedona, and it was a nice 7 days off, and I got back Friday and jumped right in.
Welcome back.
So Friday night we had a main break. Saturday we had a couple more. They were all in Division 3, so Lake Sycamore, Orange Hill, and Linda Vista. They were unrelated. That doesn't have anything to do with pump stations where these leaks were. This is the area that's fed from Morrow Reservoir, so it's all gravity. It just happened. So the crews were able to take care of those and get everybody back in service pretty quick. The hot topic for right now is on Saturday, we were notified again from SDG&E of a PSPS, which is a public safety power shutoff, looming this week. And in fact, we've been attending twice daily meetings with SDG&E, and there's a ton of people on these meetings. They happen at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And this is all based off their modeling. They have some pretty good weather modeling for San Diego County. And they're predicting starting tonight, they're going to start de-energizing different areas. For us, essentially, it's, I would say from Gird Road easterly for our facilities. So our new pump stations, Thoroughbred lift station, Morrow Hills, those are all still going to be operational fine. So what we do in these cases when we first get the notification is we start adding more water to our tanks. And we have different conditions. We set condition yellow, which meant run the tanks up to 50% and hold them there. And then we did condition red, which was this morning, that's run them up to 75%, if not more, and hold that level. Today's 10 o'clock meeting. So let me back this up. The last couple PSPS events we've had have lasted a day or two, and power came back on. At today's 10 o'clock meeting, they said there's going to be a lull on Thursday and more Santa Ana's coming Friday. And then more Santa Ana's coming Sunday and Monday, which is a little bit far out for modeling efforts. But they're already dropping that seed in our brain saying we may not be able to turn the power back on and then shut it back off 12 hours later. We might just leave it off for an extended time. So on the sewer side, it really shouldn't have any effect on us. The water side, we're pretty full with water right now on all of our tanks and reservoirs. Our connections, we can still turn them on and get water if we need it. It's just a manual, right? So instead of going on a computer and trying to do it on a computer, if all power's out, worst case scenario, we just go to the connections, just open the valve and get the water we need. So we're looking pretty good. Sometimes we have to deploy the little Honda 1000 generators at some of our sites to keep the SCADA system. So the system that we use to operate our sewer system, water system. So we have extra fuel for those. We're about as prepared as we can be. We'll see what happens tonight. They give us a 12-hour notice on and they'll tell us exactly what circuits are going to be shut down. And we have a list. So Gomez tank is on circuit 231. So we have all that. So as soon as they give us a circuit, we'll know. They said this is pretty bad. And they actually said they're equating this event to the same as the 2017 Santa Ana. And that's when we had the fire here in 2017 that started right here off 15. There's no fires in the county right now. There was a small 2-acre up in Julian that happened today, but there is a pretty 200 acres. It's got to be a lot more than that right now up at Palisades in Los Angeles, and the fight on with that one right now. So it's going to get really interesting the next few days. So just a heads up to everybody, might see some power outages depending on where you live. Did you get hit the last couple times? I don't know if it went that far south. No. You'll probably get it. You didn't get hit? No? You're
I haven't
too
been
far.
here 4 years.
Yeah, you're too far away. So,
First
okay,
Creek Whisper.
Yeah, Patty was out.
Couple-
yeah, that's
You know.
right. Yeah. So I don't know. And it's all based off of modeling. So that's what Jake and I were talking about. They're giving us, so they're modeling this and then they're passing that information to us and we're trying to make our adjustments based off of a model, and models are only good as the information you're putting in, but then you're trying to model weather with this, that's a whole nother, do we ever get that right? And what the weather's gonna be? We get close. So, long story short, we're well prepared. Hopefully nothing comes of it, but we're in a good position right now for it.
Now, did the power alert, was that the reason why the planned water shutdown was postponed?
So we had
'Cause I
those
think the
three.
planned shutdown for the water is back on for the 14th. right?
Yes, so we had the three leaks over the weekend. And sometimes what we do on these overtime jobs is we get in and fix the leak and then we'll come back later, backfill the hole, clean up the site. It doesn't make sense to have guys on overtime doing that kind of stuff. So those three leaks that was the catalyst to start pushing that, but the other catalyst was I told the guys in the bullpen on Monday morning, I said, I don't want to have a power outage in that neighborhood. And then here comes Rainbow killing everybody's water at the same, and it's a pretty big shutdown. And the leak's not too bad. We need to get to it, but let's just push it another week. And that way the people that live up there aren't getting hit both directions, right? That would just have.
Do you mind if I ask what and where is this leak?
So if you come off the 15, you hook a right on Mission, as you make that tight bend on Mission Road, there's a kind of you can make a right, and there's a fence and a gate. I don't know what that property's called at the top of the hill up there.
Is it the one that goes up to that reservoir?
No, this is well before that, but it's right there where the chain link fence is
For the North County Fire Department?
before that.
Before that?
Before
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a
So-
leak there.
And it's a 16-inch line. And once you shut that off, it affects we've shut that off a couple times already. So we've shut it off on the other side of the freeway, but this time it's on the west side. So we'll tackle it next week. Now it could get pushed again if these Santa Anas continue on into early next week. But yeah, I just thought it would be prudent not to do that to our ratepayers.
Okay, thank you.
On the other two leaks that you already worked and this one, are they on lines that are on the CIP list?
No, these are all residential 6-inch lines that we don't have a strong history of breaks.
Oh, really?
Kind of in the same area as La Cañada,
Uh-huh.
but we just don't have like Linda Vista. I couldn't tell you the last time we had a leak there. Orange Hill, same thing. And Lake Sycamore, the last leak was probably 6 years ago.
Are they
Lake
cast
Sycamore.
iron or are they
So,
on stock, or
It's the cement coated
Oh,
steel
cement
pipe.
coated.
Yeah.
are they on anode, cathode?
They are now.
Some-
So
Oh, okay,
anytime that we do a repair, we install sacrificial animals.
yeah. Great.
Is that it?
I can keep.
That
going.
was-
Oh, no.
I have the gift of gab. And
Your
I have a
choice.
and I have a captive audience here.
Yes, you do.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. You
Yeah,
done?
that's it.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Any questions for Bob? For Robert? Okay.
You know what? Just
yep,
one
Yeah,
to go
yeah,
back.
yeah.
In the past, you used to feed me the status, that I would put out on Nextdoor and whatnot. Are you gonna do anything, provide any kind of notice about our preparedness and that kind of thing, or
Haven't,
how's the district gonna handle that?
are you still getting the notifications?
I haven't seen them, no, so.
We actually just fixed that email list. The email list was a little
Oh,
old. So Therese just took care of that. I
Okay.
noticed
Yeah.
it actually,
Yeah.
he sent out a report on Monday and
I mean, personally, I think it ought to be a board member that sends that type of information out. But I mean, if nobody else is ready to do it or can do it, I mean, I'll be glad to drop any information you might want to put on Nextdoor. Because I think it's important from a transparency standpoint that, I mean, like you're saying that it's from Bird East, okay, so that affects my neighborhood
right.
and, Division 3. So I'd have heightened interest if,
Yeah.
what might be coming, aside from the general, oh, there's winds coming, we're gonna be shutting things down, which is what SDG&E said, but that doesn't give any insight to the people.
Yeah,
So,
Right.
yeah,
I agree. I
yeah,
think it's a great idea.
And I don't think a lot of people know how much work goes on behind the scenes to be
No.
prepared for
Yeah.
these type of
Oh, yeah.
events and,
so, I mean, if you want to put something together,
okay,
I mean, I'll do it,
okay. You got it?
okay.
Any other questions for Robert? All right, we'll move on to item 9D, committee member comments. Robert, you got anything?
Yeah, the Dish Network boys finally showed up to the Hutton tank, turned on the cell equipment, rushed to get it working before December 31st. They must have a yearly number of sites they have to turn up to keep their license going. And it indicated it was going to be addressed as Boost Mobile because people were being confused when they were told Dish Network was trying to sell them service. So it's all one entity apparently. They didn't give me the date, but they said they are coming out with a crew and equipment to test the radiation levels coming from the new equipment. I just did a quickie with my little handheld meter and the power level was up 4 times what it was when the site was down. So it was evident it was up, but that was just a casual reading through a bedroom window. It's not the same as getting real equipment out and a proper antenna and taking the measurements. So we'll see what happens when that comes. They were very interested in knowing, well, what do you think is the safe level? And I said 1,000 times lower than the FCC says. And they're like, what? I go, look at Europe. That's what they do in Europe. We're just plain ignorant in this country. The bottom line is it damages DNA, even when it's a very small level. So you don't really want to get constantly inundated with it. And so the guy was pretty cooperative, but it's not his job to do the testing. His job was just to get everything online. I didn't ask him about the other tank, if the second tank is ready to go on or what they're doing there. I couldn't remember the name of the tank. It's one on Gopher Canyon.
Yeah, they're not doing anything with that one now. That project's gone.
They gave up on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what's up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
No comments.
Same here. Okay. Next item is one I've been looking forward to, discussion and possible action regarding committee membership. And Julie Johnson has expressed a desire to serve on this committee. Julie has, of course, she's a former board member and she has served, I believe, on every single committee that we have had here in this district. So this would be her second pass at engineering and operations. And what's before us today is recommending to the board that she be appointed, officially appointed. And Julie, if you'd like to say a few words, you just feel free. You got anything you want to talk about?
I think you could. Said a lot. It would be an honor to serve this. This committee is very important for the success of our district and for what happens for our rate. So I would be honored.
Personally, I think it would be great. It means that the poor Budget and Finance Committee should be jealous because we really have kind of a powerhouse of expertise here between Mig, a former board member and a former member of this committee, and Julie, former board member, former member of this committee, and others. And I'm hoping that we will go ahead and move this forward quickly. And I'm also hoping that at some point we will get some more powerhouse people to help us beef up, right, Patty, the Budget and Finance Committee? Because our population on that committee is low and we could use some more juice in there. So are there any comments from committee members? Otherwise, I would like to make a motion that we recommend to the board that Julie be appointed. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Steve seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Unanimously carried. Yes, congratulations, Julie, and we look forward to you being here, hopefully at the next committee meeting. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Item number 11. Completion of the I just realized something. Okay, yes, completion of the Gopher Canyon Emergency Pipeline Replacement and Paving Restoration Project, which was in Division 1. I read the memo. It's nice to see that we came in considerably below what the appropriation was. And we've had a number of briefings on this project in the past. Robert, is it you or is it Chad, whoever is gonna do this?
We were arm wrestling over it, and
I lost as always.
I was gonna say I lost, but you conceded to me.
He doesn't know I don't even try.
Actually, it was Issa, our construction supervisor, who's been providing the updates, but he is in Mammoth with his family enjoying the snow up there. And by the way, it's snowing in San Jacinto Peak right now. I was talking to my wife about hiking up there. I don't know if she'll go for that. I think for the most part, everybody's seen this presentation, but we'll go through it a little bit quick. The important thing is, yes, we did come under the original budget. I think we were somewhere in the $600,000 range when we first approached. Thank you. We first approached the board about it. Essentially, we had a main break on July 26th. We went to E&O, let them know what was going on. Instead of just fixing this main break and calling it good and leaving, Issa actually did a little bit more research and realized there was about 375 feet of pipe that if we upsized it would help us in our pumping efforts from the new Dentro pump station up to the Gopher tank. And this slide depicts exactly where we're at on Gopher Canyon. So right across the street from the Vista Valley Golf Course there to the entrance of the new Bonzo Oaks development, although I don't even know if that's the right name anymore. Hey, Havens. So
Everything is Havens. They've even started calling the golf course
Mhm.
Havens now.
Yeah.
And for those of us that have played it and been around for a long time, it's hard to switch from saying Vista Valley Country Club to the Havens. but
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
Whatever floats the boat. Yeah. So this is a depiction. If you look at the upper left where Dentro pump station is, and the water line goes through that Havens property, and where we decide to upsize, yep, right there, and then up to the Gopher tank. So what happened is on each side of that 375 feet, it was 12-inch pipe, and this 375 feet was 8-inch pipe. So it just made sense if we were there, the road was already damaged from the main break. Let's upsize this to 12-inch. It was just one of those weird quinky dinks. The board approved 600,000. This was an emergency job that included, paving. The pipe work was all done in-house. All the pictures that you're gonna see are our construction team doing the work. And as I'm told sometimes by vendors and other contractors, it's unusual that water districts do this level of work. So laying pipe, doing that welding, the more complicated stuff, but that's what we do. Cement coated steel pipe because of what the pressure is out there. It's what we ended up installing. Took us 4 days just to get the pipe in the ground. What took us a little bit longer was connecting the ends. Part of laying pipe before you can do connect it up, you have to do what's called pressure testing. So you pressure test it, check for leaks. You inject high chlorine into the line that kills anything that's going on in that pipe because it's been sitting in somebody's stockyard or whatever. So you want to kill everything. Then you flush that water out and then you do what's called bacteriological samples. So you take the water, we sample it, send it to a lab, and they give us the results. If all of that passes, then we're allowed to connect to our existing system. This is the same procedures that contractors have to follow for any new pipeline installations. So the testing took us 3 days of water quality testing. This is what we were looking at on the tie-ins for each side. So you had multiple 45s, right? So because of the depth, we chose to lay the pipe a little bit, not as deep as the original pipe. For a couple reasons. In the future, if it ever had to be repaired, you're not going down 8 feet to fix the pipe. You only need to go down 4 feet. But because of that, we had to put 45. So, come up in that direction to tie in. A little bit complicated on the tie-ins. Usually it's just a straight piece of pipe. We were able to get to that pretty effectively.
Robert, when you do 4 feet, you have to shore the trench.
It's a trick question. So
I'm
The-
just curious. I'm sure you'd have to shore it 8 foot.
So the Cal OSHA rules are shoring is mandatory at 5 feet,
Okay.
but you can shore at 4 if you want to. At 4 feet, you have to have a ladder in a hole. And then if you go over 20 feet, then your shoring system has to be designed by a registered professional engineer. So there's a lot of requirements.
Yeah, it really depends on the soil type you're working in.
Yeah.
But 5 feet, you could be in the bedrock, you're still gonna put in
You
chores.
got to put shores, yeah.
Beautiful.
Paving, right? So we went out we solicited bids on paving, and this was one of the highest costs. So anytime we do pipeline repairs, the highest cost is always going to be paving. When we went to the board, we based our paving costs off of what Southern charged the developer for that entire swath, because we didn't know what the extent of the damage was under the pavement. We wouldn't know until we started peeling it up. Southern said, hey, it was about whatever the dollar amount, I think it was $400,000 to do the paving. We said, okay, we could incur that entire cost. That was a worst case scenario. We worked with Bonzo, the Havens, on the paving operation, make sure that we weren't interrupting traffic. So there's an extra entrance at the top of the hill, kind of by the entrance to Vista Valley. So they were able to use that to get in and out, because when we got down to the bottom, we basically took up that whole intersection, and it was tough to let cars in there when we were doing the paving operation. Yeah, beginning to end, the break happened in July. By the time we got done with the work, and then we got this on the paving contractor schedule, we were able to wrap it up in December. So this is the important part, what I was trying to get to. The paving just came in under $100,000, so that was great. We really did that really worked out good for us. The labor was a little bit over our original estimate, and talking to Isa and why we ended up becoming a little bit more is the tie-ins took a little bit more time than we anticipated, but we also at the same time had hired 3 new employees. So what do you do with 3 guys when everybody else is out there on Gopher Canyon laying pipe? Do you leave them in the yard and tell them to sweep the parking lot, or do we pull them out there with us and say, hey, guess what? Time to start learning.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. We pulled them out there and
Sure.
said, hey, you're
Best choice.
throwing you in the fire. It's
Yep.
time to get going on it.
Yep.
Good JT.
Yeah, exactly. Uh,
That's what happens when you're a rookie.
yeah, yes, exactly. Everything else came in pretty close to what we estimated. The traffic control is one thing that we didn't anticipate. And the reason being is we were able to create 2 lanes where we didn't need traffic control. We put the cones up ourselves. The problem we ran into is we got closer to the entrance to the Havens. It was starting to interrupt what their traffic coming in and out. And they still have construction traffic coming in and out. So what we did is hired a traffic control company to put guys there to manage that for us. They ended up bringing 3 different people to manage that. That would have been 3 of our staff to do that. Obvious question, well, you got 3 new guys. Could you have them do that? No, we're not going to put new guys to try and manage traffic control. So that was a cost that was, we elected to do to keep things on the positive note for Bonzo Oaks. But all in all, total project costs, just under 275,000, which is third maybe of what we originally went to the board with. Essentially done all in-house except for the traffic control. Project went really smooth. The guys did a really good job. They figured out some innovative ways to weld that pipe, so all the joints were welded. In the olden days, you take that cement coated steel pipe and you just push it together. There's a rubber gasket, and then you move on to the next one. You just push them together. That's where we have a lot of our leaks, is at those joints. So we actually weld them, and that takes a little bit of time. It's called a butt strap. You put it around the pipe, you weld it, put a thing. It's called a handhold, so you can reach in there and re-mortar the inside of the pipe. Then you weld the cap on there. So it takes a little bit of work, but they figured out a way to be pretty productive on that.
This harkens back to a long time ago, ages ago. My granddad was a welder on pipelines, and he was a string bead welder. How many passes do we make?
So it depends.
Typical.
If we're welding what's called a flange on the pipe, you're going to make an inside pass and then 2 on the outside of the flange. If you're welding a butt strap, it's probably going to be about 2 passes. But there's a lot of, that's the typical, but there's the outlier cases. Sometimes the butt straps don't fit quite right. So you do a technique called heat and beat. So you heat it, you beat it down, and you may have to do a little bit more filling on it. And all the welding's done by our construction guys. We don't hire welders to do that. And that pipe's over there is running, I think, I don't even want to guess. We're probably 200 PSI, I'm thinking, over there. And these welds aren't leaking. So these guys are, and they learn this in-house. We don't send them to a special school or anything. So it's just passing on that knowledge. But yeah.
Thank you.
Could you go back to the listing, the budget? Yeah, okay. So the 97.5 paving, you said that you went and got an estimate from whoever that was for that entire job that they had done before.
Right.
Okay. Was it the identical square footage?
Yes. So what we did is when we went to the board, we went to Southern and we said, what did you guys, how much did it cost when you did all this? And
Yeah.
they said, whatever the price was, $400,000. Once we had established what needed to be replaced on the asphalt, we put it out for bids. So Southern, Peters, I can't remember what the other one was. And we marked it out with white paint. We
Mhm.
said, all this area needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
This is the square footage we have. They came out, looked at it, and then submitted their quotes. So all the quotes were based on the same square footage, the same areas, same traffic control.
But I guess where I was going was for the original paving they did, it was on a certain square footage, which was more than
A lot
we
more.
had to do.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And I guess on a per square foot basis, what was the difference between the big number and our number?
Yeah, I don't have.
Don't have that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we got a pretty, ESA met the county out there.
Uh-huh.
That's usually the county's the one that
Yeah,
drawing stripes on where,
right.
and
right.
they got a good relationship building and got a pretty favorable, marking by the county. Very reasonable.
Oh,
I would
really?
Say that,
Okay.
I guess that was,
Okay.
we were concerned that the county was going to extend.
Yeah,
and-
yeah. And that's kind of where I was angling
Yeah.
for. So, but I mean, you guys,
So that was really a huge savings.
yeah.
Mig,
Okay.
were you thinking that if our original estimate based on our conversations with the prior contractor was 400 and we did it for 100, were you kind of thinking, well, did we do 1/4 of the square footage? Is that where you kind of?
It was much less.
It was much less.
It was much
Okay.
less. Yeah, I was,
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
Also in the back of my mind was the other job was for the county, right?
it was for the
Or for
developer.
the development.
Yeah.
And so my mind was, I wonder how much profit was in there? And
Yeah.
can we determine, is there any way to determine, what they shoot for? And for it to give us insight into any other type jobs we might have, where we could make a projection of, okay, this guy's coming in, this is what happened in the past. Then you kind of have a feel for what might be showing up
Yeah.
on the doorstep.
Right.
And then be able to gauge, okay, maybe we can push them to a certain point in reducing the price and negotiations and stuff.
And there's some mitigating factors that we always hear from the paving companies or I'll fix the asphalt. What's the subgrade? So if the
Yeah.
subgrade, it's 2 feet of compacted base and that is completely wet and it's no good, now all that has to be replaced. So it's hard even to get numbers from them
Yeah,
until you kind of dig it up and see what you've got. And then they'll say, oh, well, the subgrade's horrible. We got to replace all that. So now there goes $50,000 more.
yeah,
It's,
okay.
yeah,
Got it.
it's kind of like a moving target with pavers. But anyway, Chad, that's our
Oh.
presentation. Yes, sir.
I got a question. You got your map here in the attachment. And I thought you just showed that it was gonna be 12-inch pipe everywhere. But this map shows that you just bumped into an 8-inch pipe. Is this map wrong?
No. The 12-inch pipe, so 12-inch comes down, see where it's Rue Margot?
Yeah.
It's not shown there on the map that's in your packet, the one you're looking at. There's a 12-inch pipe that comes down there that reaches Gopher Canyon. So it's 12 all the way out to the tank, but then there's a service going over to like Calavi Spa. That's the 8-inch pipe. So there is still an
Okay.
8-inch stick, but the
Okay, so
transmission is all
So
12.
it's
it's just not in the map, right?
Okay.
So so the water's coming from Dentro Pump Station this way.
Oh,
And going this way to Gopher Tank.
Yeah.
And so this section of 8-inch is what we replaced. This 8-inch that goes this way goes up and feeds Calavita. So
Okay.
this is 8-inch all the way up to Calavita. We were just concerned with this, making sure that we had 12-inch.
Okay. I didn't realize there was a vertical component here.
This is how we
Yeah.
show the lines that are under construction.
Right, and as I understand it, this is an information item. No action is being requested of the committee. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, so thank you for the info. The next item, number 12. Review of inactive groundwater supply infrastructure. And is this related to this very long letter that we found here at our desk?
It is,
today?
and
I
I've
haven't
got
had a chance to read this long epistle.
I'll give you a little summary of it,
All right,
but you can read it at your leisure.
Just throw it at ChatGPT and have it summarized.
homie, don't do that.
But this was actually Megan asked about some existing well infrastructure. To be honest, we haven't found a lot on the actual infrastructure itself. Like we know there are some a few wells in there actually as part of that letter there. And some backup information does mention like 3 district wells. Back in 2003, they were already inactive, but 3 district wells that kind of run up the San Luis Rey here. I don't know exactly the location. Like I said, we haven't been able to find a lot of information on that. Really, though, the more relevant thing when we're talking about, what would it take to bring wells back into service? It's really about the water rights. That's really your key. And so that letter there, that's the most recent correspondence that I can find based on, or that there was actually a district request for what I'll call it native water rights, where it's just existing groundwater. And but there was a couple different occasions where the district did make application to the State Water Resources Control Board for direct diversions out of what they call the Bonsall Basin, which is this kind of flow through basin area along the San Luis Rey River. And so that request there was a request for a direct diversion of 7.2 CFS, maxing out at 3,000 acre feet annually. And as you'll read in that report, there's a lot that's required to get an approval for that kind of water right. You have to prove that the water actually is available and exists, that it's not fully subscribed along the river or within the basin. So a lot of hydrogeological work. Also, it talks about obviously a lot of environmental studies that have to be done. Are you impacting the river? Are you you're going to lower the water table? Does that impact the toads and the bugs and the bunnies and things? So that letter actually was a response to the district that kind of outlines, hey, here's all the challenges that you face with this request. On top of that, obviously you have to clear all challenges to these water rights. So, and they indicated in that report that they'd already received several letters in advance of our application indicating that the district would receive challenges on this, likely from both upstream and downstream water rights holders on the San Luis Rey. So that letter really, I think, concluded the effort that the district was taking at that time to secure those rights. I haven't been able to find anything beyond that.
Right. The letter said that our current application was, quote, defective. And then it said at the end, we were to advise them within 45 days whether we want to continue to process this and cure the defects or not. Did we? What did we do? Do you know?
That I don't know.
I don't either.
Yeah, but at some point we left it.
I think if we walk away, then the application is considered
right
denied or dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in the letter, it wasn't quite a friendly letter.
No.
And I think partly because this had occurred twice where we had Rainbow had made application and really hadn't fulfilled its side of the obligation to actually put a diligent effort into proving it could extract that groundwater without impact to all those things, or satisfy all the conditions of actually them approving a water right. So, and they had indicated they spent a lot of time and effort on this without a lot of funding or effort in return. I think that was pretty consistent. I think I found an older letter too, I believe, from the original application, pretty consistent on both of those responses by the State Water Resources Control Board. So anyways, that's where that stands. There have been some efforts, again, historically, to potentially, access that groundwater, or get rights to it. Rights to native water would be most beneficial to the district because those are kind of ongoing. It's not dependent on other factors. But in 2016, district kind of took another path at it, and that's to quantify return flows. And so return flows are pretty well-established water rights. Basically the importer, so that would be us, right? We're importing water into the area for use. A portion of that is returned to the groundwater basin, either through septic tanks or agricultural runoff, various methods. And so the district actually completed a study with West Yost, a pretty comprehensive study that looked at those return flows and water quality and really kind of what it would take to capture that return flow water that the district would have rights to. If you can prove that you've got it, then the district has rights to that. We paid for it and brought it into the basin. We're allowed to take it out. There was I know there was a letter exchanged, and this is in advance of the study that was done by Hope, kind of an update and an advancement of that study with the upstream water rights holders, the Indian Water Authority, San Luis Rey. Yeah. Am I saying that right? You know what I'm talking about. The tribes upstream. They've got rights on.
Pala,
Pala?
Well, there's a host of
Uima,
tribes.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, Uima as well.
Yeah.
But there was a letter exchange there, and they seem to acknowledge that those return flow rights exist, and but still requested, if we were going to move on with this project, they'd like to see monitoring wells installed to actually verify that there wasn't impacts to the groundwater table by us pumping. So pretty favorable response, I would say, from
Mhm.
somebody who like
this was back when we were looking at seriously trying to capture that water. And my recollection is the further east we went to collect it, the better the quality of the water, right?
Correct.
The
The
further west we
TDS.
went, the more difficult it became.
Yeah, TDS drops as you move upstream.
Yeah.
Although you got to go quite a bit upstream to get to good levels, the 600 levels. That's up in that Uima, beyond the Narrows, up in that area. Seems like everything south of there, even we were talking to a potential development that what is it, a college? They're talking about building a college up in that area. They have a few wells, and they're in the San Luis Rey Water District,
Correct.
not the
Mhm.
not the tribes, but the San Luis Rey Water District. And they were even saying their water, the TDS is high.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so the move on from the 2016 study, the 2023 study provided an update on the return flow analysis, pretty detailed work by Geoscience and Hoke. And currently, well, they estimated it was a lower capacity with our demands dropping, those return flows actually diminish. The ag runoff and things like that isn't quite what it was. But about a 2.5 MGD capacity, that's the actual water we would produce. So that's minus brine and all the different things, from about 2,700 acre feet. So, I have the thing, don't I? And these were the figures. And if you remember, I think September of 2023, my first board meeting, there was a big presentation on this. But we had a couple of alternatives. Again, this all considered new wells, actually not restoring the old wells, but this would be a set of new wells down kind of in the lower part of the basin. So what would that be, like west of where Moosa Creek comes in? Series of new wells, a treatment facility. So alternative one was really Rainbow, call it going alone on it, right? Build our own treatment facility, build our own wells. Brine line options, two options, one going up to Fallbrook. They have a land outfall, a brine line that connects to the Oceanside outfall, and they do have excess capacity in that brine outfall. And then also a line directly over to the San Luis Rey water treatment plant where you could connect with the brine discharge. But capital costs in the $78 to $86 million range, and per acre foot costs of about 3,300 acre foot. So pretty expensive water. Another option considered more of a partnership with the city of Oceanside. And partnering with them at their Mission Basin desalter, which is further away, but it's an existing facility. And I think there was some economies of scale there, obviously with operations and things like that. There would be a lot to work out with that, if Oceanside even agreed to it. I know they're getting ready to rebuild that facility currently. And I heard it was delayed a little bit, so I think they're not planning on starting that for another year or so. But they do need to I guess all the membranes need to be replaced, and they're just gonna basically gut the whole facility and redo it. But this looked at obviously a lot further on this would be a raw water pipeline that extended all the way over to that facility, treat, and then they deal with the brine from there. Obviously, we'd still have to pay for disposal and all the O&M costs that go along with that. But this was the second option. Capital costs were in the same ballpark, 70 to 80 million with, more reasonable costs in the $2,100 per acre foot range.
My recollection might be faulty, but it seems like when we push all that raw water down there to be treated, it's outside the boundaries of our district. And so we would then, I guess, put the water into what at that time was the San Diego Water Authority system, and we would basically get water credit coming back. Now that, I mean, that's not really all that feasible now that we are in Eastern, right? That
Yeah,
whole-
I mean, you'd probably have to work out, probably not advantageous to bring all that water back the
Back,
same way.
right?
Mhm.
So we need some kind of swap.
Swap, but there would be I think there's probably quite a bit of opportunity there. Oceanside's got the Weiss treatment plant, and then their own pipeline that runs that whole stretch that I know borders some of our facilities. I don't know what those details would look like. It would probably tie in somewhere in that southern zone, and you'd have to move it that way. But yeah, it'd be more difficult to use just a county water authority kind of swap nowadays. It would have to be an agency to agency kind of local water swap. Yeah. So a little different.
A little different.
Probably
Sounds complicated.
probably
to me.
doable, but there's still going to be costs there, and those kind of things are going to be there.
We're getting our water from Eastern now. We don't really have a relationship with,
Correct. No direct.
and so the fact that Oceanside could take our water and use it for something doesn't really give us the water that
Yeah.
we need. So
You
that
would-
it sounds like that would be complicated.
Yeah, I think you could get it done. Our facilities are close enough. I know we have an emergency connect over on the east side. That not a lot of capacity there, but we have two tanks that border each other too. What is that? The over by Morrow. It's Morrow and whatever they call their tank.
Morrow.
Okay, we both have a Morrow tank, and so there are. I think there would be opportunities there to bring that water back without having to pipe it all the way back. And doing it just between the two agencies, not having to involve a wholesaler.
Yeah.
But it would take some effort and things. But I think we could probably get in the south zone and probably over on the east side without too much trouble.
Which leads me to, why is this on the agenda? That's what I'm,
Well,
Mig asked about wells.
Yeah.
oh,
Right.
okay, thank
And-
you.
And this is, first, thank you very much for pulling it all together. Okay,
Yeah.
this, I think, an excellent presentation that ought to be revisited periodically, not every year, okay,
Yeah.
but to have consolidated it like this so that we recognize what those alternatives are of other waters.
Yeah.
That are within our grasp, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, the cost of water is going to continue to go up.
Yep.
Okay, and at some point, there may be the need, with development and whatnot, that you need additional water, and you're going to go and find it wherever it is. And this just makes sure that we have it on the books.
Yeah.
And, my interest was, if we had wells, could we reestablish them? And even if it was just some kind of limited system that maybe was just only utilized for firefighting. I don't know,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
you got to think outside of the box
Right.
and look at what the potential is and understand what the capabilities are before you hit the wall and try to say, oh, what do we do now? Okay, you've done some of the homework and you've got that set of documentation that allows you to move forward from, and I was just thinking about the wells. I mean, you pulled all the rest of what the district has been doing into one consolidated package, and I think that's excellent.
And I agree with you. I think the more information you have, the more creative you can be, right? So
Yeah,
So I think that's good. And I think we're going to keep kind of searching for some of this stuff
Yeah.
and see. I think, obviously I don't think we ever really had any, well, we probably pumped some groundwater at some point, but really didn't have established rights to it.
Yeah.
The thing we are doing that we haven't actually finished everything yet on this thing. We did finish a draft, at that, I put September 2024. It was actually September 2023. Time flies.
Yes, it do.
At that 2023 board meeting, the direction there was kind of, hey, we don't want to move into the next big phase, spend another $700,000 on studies and that for something that doesn't look real promising at the moment. But we did want to finish. We were like 95% done with that feasibility study, and we thought for the last kick the can the last 3 feet.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and finish the feasibility study. So we've done that. We have I guess what we're calling a draft final on that feasibility study. And we did provide that to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation because the whole point was in that feasibility study is to get it into a format. USBR requires feasibility study in a very specific format for funding purposes. So if you're going to request funding through Title 16, Water Smart, those programs that they run. And so it was a very good idea to do it that way. And so we wanted to finish it, and so we did and submitted that. Basically, they'll do kind of a preliminary review. Staff will take a look at it and go, before you submit this thing for a formal review, you got to address this. So they're doing that for us now. So in the next month or so, we expect to get those comments back. We are going to address those comments and actually make the formal submittal to the USBR and try to get them to approve the feasibility study. All it does is gives us the ability to apply for funding at some point in time whenever we decide if we did want to move on it. Some of the funding can be, if they've got, especially when these big federal funding packages come out and, depending on what the drought status is at the moment, these are they're desirable projects. Anything that offsets water coming from the Colorado River or, offsets water that you have to bring in from these strained resources. Colorado River's been the hot one now here for the last few years. And I think probably will continue to be, but some of it, like the Title 16 program, you can get up to 25%. I think it's up to like 30 million as the cap on that funding. And then Water Smart, it just varies. They send out these funding notifications. They usually go up to 50%, and the amount of funding kind of varies, but sometimes, like I said, it can be really big. So at some point in the future, if it does look like something we want to pursue, and they'll cover half of whatever you want to, it doesn't have to be construction costs. If your next phase is planning and design, they'll cover half of planning and design. They'll kind of cover any phases of these projects. You can do it in a phased manner. And once they've funded some of your activities, it puts you in really good line too. If you do want to move to construction, you're in a good spot to secure additional funding through the Bureau because they'll want to see you finish it if they've already invested in it. So anyway, so we're kind of completing those steps. It's not a huge lift for staff. It's, it's kind of letting the consultant kind of just finish what he's done. We get some questions in that, but it's not a heavy lift for us. And I think definitely worthwhile to wrap it up.
Do we still have a contractual relationship with Hoke, and are we still paying them money to do stuff?
Yes, they had some remaining budget within that the first phase to wrap all this up. So that's what we're utilizing
How
currently.
much are we paying for water now? How much per acre foot? What is it?
Just the
1,600?
base cost as of January 1, I believe, is 13
and change?
1350, something like that. Yeah, somewhere in that range.
I think if you remember when we first started looking into this, a lot of it was being driven on whether we detached or not. So the prices with the water authority, if we stayed with them, these projects might have been feasible by staying with them. But once we detach, the lower cost per acre
Financially, it doesn't
foot,
look-
yeah.
And my recollection is even if we stayed with the water authority, it was gonna be a long time before these projects penciled out anywhere close to, because I think we also had to take into account the substantial operating expenses that
Yes.
we would have in running brine removal or a treatment plant or whatever we had to do,
Oh, yeah.
or spend extra capital dollars in order to pipe that water somewhere so that somebody else with a facility could do it for. I just remember it was just getting harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, I think that's why you see those dollar per acre foot costs
yeah,
inflate so
yeah,
much when
yeah.
we're going alone.
Yeah.
Because we bear all those operating costs. And so, yeah, it's something, I mean, if you got 50%, somebody's going to give you 50 million of it's probably 100 now. It's not 80 anymore,
Yeah.
right? That was 2023 dollars. And
Well, but that's something really to take on to operate,
yes,
because now you've got to not only operate it, you got to maintain it, you've got to upgrade it. If there are
Yeah.
new standards, you've got to upgrade to new standards.
Yep.
And it
new
just strikes me
contaminants,
that for
anything,
a
yeah.
little bitty district like us, that may be taking on a lot.
It's tough. I mean, it would be nice. It'd be nice reliability to have a source right here.
Mhm.
If any kind of pipeline ruptures or anything, we can still produce some water there. So there's some added benefits from even just cost wise,
Risk reduction.
but boy, yeah, it's a big.
I vote we replace more old pipe.
There we go.
That's what
There
I
we go.
vote. I vote we replace old
Keep
pipe.
the water in the pipe.
Right, keep it in the pipe rather than leaking out on the road. That'd be better.
Although I will say one thing, and that's that if they cut back on Colorado River water, okay, and the water's got to come from someplace, and they've got projects that they'll help, you have projects that'll help fund to be able to gain, I'll call it an internal water supply.
Yeah.
If you haven't done the homework, you can't move out when the time comes. Okay. And even in the case of the water wells, okay,
Mhm.
it may not be feasible to go out and build them. Okay. And get the project going. But I'm pretty sure there's probably some level through that process that we can go to get to a point and stop.
Mhm.
Okay. And it could be that you got to do that analysis to be able to determine this is the level of water that's coming down the pipe, down the stream, down the river, and it's totally adjudicated. I mean, the water has been distributed, if you will, okay? But on those years where there's that increased flow, that's what's available. Okay, if you don't have an app in, you don't have the paperwork done, you'll never be able to access that. And whoever has the paperwork done, they'll get that water. So there's water, there's going to be water out there. The question is, how much does it cost to try and get to that point?
Yeah.
To
be able to capture it
to
when it's there.
Yeah. But also how much is it going to cost so that we're in the queue to be able to do what's necessary to be able to access that water.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm driving at,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
planning.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because they did do that, a couple years ago when they had, they felt like they were going to send a lot of water out to the ocean. Right.
Yeah.
So they did these basically emergency water rights permits to where, especially like Central Valley and places up there where they could actually spill this excess water into infiltration ponds, right? To just get it into the ground.
Yeah.
And it benefits everybody, right? Helps the groundwater and do those things. So, so there are cases like that. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yep. That's all I got.
That's all it is.
That's it.
Any comments or questions about this? Okay, item 13, board action updates. Did we have anything?
I have it right here. Jake, I don't think we had anything at the
December board
related.
meeting.
When was the December board
It
meeting?
was early
10th?
December, December 10th.
9th or 10th.
10th,
Yeah.
yeah.
December.
Yeah, it was in December, right? Yeah.
You see me banging on my computer and got a email from SDG&E. So they're gave us the 12-hour notice for McGee Tank and McGee Pump Station up there off of Paula Temecula Road and Rancho Heights. Usually that's the first one we get because it's pretty far
That's-
out
yeah,
there.
northeast
easterly.
corner.
Yeah.
Got a
So-
generator though.
Yeah, we got the generators out there at McGee Pump Station now, so that's good. But there's not a lot of demand on that tank. We'll fill it up and it'll last us 7 days easily.
The board approved the odor control.
Oh, I was just reading about that.
Okay,
That was I think the sole item. We reviewed the safety policies too, right?
right, safety policy
odor
and,
control.
and the records retention.
Yep, yep. So those all got approved at the
Because
board.
now that you mentioned, I remember saying to the board that we were 3 items on the calendar.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
But that was it.
All right. Item number 14, as needed. I didn't see any yellow. Did I
Did
see
not
any?
have any in
No
December.
new yellows, right?
Correct.
So everything is status quo. Suggested agenda items for the next meeting. I don't think there are any carryovers from here, from today for a next meeting, so
Am I allowed to
what?
participate? I'm just visiting.
Yeah.
I, within the last week, spoke with the HOA manager, Jeff Baker, over at Horse Creek.
Okay.
And he has said that DR Horton had put in all the purple pipes for the reclaimed water, but it's not hooked up.
Right. Yeah, we have no recycled water supply. So that was done in the
17.
chance that we would
Oh.
have recycled water available. It's still, I mean, it's irrigation water, separate piping system, but
And he,
Oh, yeah.
he reached out to me via email. And so I.
Lately,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
not that long ago.
he just said it would save the whole community there some money.
What was his name? I can look at it. It was
If-
not that long ago.
It's
If-
Jeff
But
Baker.
we don't have dual systems, right?
We don't.
Right, right. So-
we don't. It was just,
Mm.
if it
It
ever
was the
comes,
messenger.
you're ready to have it.
Yeah. He and I were emailing back at the beginning of December.
Okay.
So very recent.
What are they trying to do?
So the correspondence was. He wanted to know, they noticed it's all purple pipe, purple sprinkler heads. So can we get recycled water?
Oh,
I let them know. The developer did that proactively in the event recycled water ever became available,
But
but
it's
it's currently not in the
not currently
CIP plan.
available. Right.
And if we don't have a reason, I'm now wondering. The golf courses that I play in our district have purple pipe. So that means what? They've got wells and they're using their well water
Yeah.
and calling it reclaimed water
Yeah.
and
Non-potable.
non-potable. Okay, gotcha. That's what
Well,
it is.
And some, like Horse Ranch Creek, they could put in purple, coordinating with the purveyor to one day get recycled. It's cheaper to put it in purple than to retrofit it after the fact.
Absolutely. Just where are you gonna get it? I mean, never mind. Forget it. Okay. So do we have any agenda items for next time?
We will have agenda items.
Okay.
Yes, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm sure the staff will
Yeah.
have stuff. And then I think motion to adjourn. I move we adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
We will have the mid-year budget. We'll be looking at the CIP for the mid-year budget review. So. anyway.
Okay.
And other stuff.
All right, moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We are adjourned. QED, quit and eat dinner.
Patty, I just emailed you the correspondence I had with Jeff.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.